So we got to be competitive in this industry. And it's either an industry or it's a Cinderella game. And you either see it as an industry and back it. Because from Malin Head to Mizenhead to Carnsore Point and all the way back to Belfast Lough, every parish is involved in tourism and hospitality of some nature. And there's a lot of people employed in it.
The Architects of Business, with EY Entrepreneur of the Year, telling the inspirational stories behind Ireland's most successful entrepreneurs.
Hello and welcome to the Architects of Business, made in partnership with EY Entrepreneur of the Year, where you will hear the inspirational stories of some of Ireland's most successful entrepreneurs. I'm Sonya Lennon, broadcasting remotely from my home at this time. And on this week's show, I'll be joined by Liam Griffin, the hotelier who owns and runs five-star Monart Spa, Hotel Kilkenny, and the Ferry Carrick Hotel. He talks to me about what it's like in a sector that has just opened for business and why Ireland needs a dedicated Minister for Tourism. If you haven't already done so, click subscribe to get new shows directly into your feed. Liam Griffin, thank you so much for joining me on Architects of Business today. I have to start by holding my hands up and saying I'm a big fan of your work. My favourite sound in the universe, I think, is the silence of a toweling slipper padding down a plushly carpeted hallway. And Monart Spa certainly evokes that to me. It is, I suppose, one of the ultimate destinations in Ireland as a spa resort and retreat. That's not all. There is so much more to you than that. You are a hotelier deep into your core. It's in your DNA. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. And I suppose your GAA background is well documented, and certainly no stranger to excellence there. But I'd like to go back a little bit just before we dive into all of that to your background and I suppose your early inculcation into hospitality and what that looked like.
Yeah, well, I suppose it goes back to my mother. We're actually, my kids are like fourth generation because during the economic war, which was way back, my mother's family were farmers. And by way of trying to make a living, since we were making a great decision that we wouldn't sell anything to Britain, which seems a little bit ridiculous now when you look back. But anyway, so that meant that they had a fine farm guest house and started a guest house there. And I suppose that led me to the hotel industry inevitably.
And so, where your absolute mentors were coming through thick and fast through the GAA, there were other external mentors from the hospitality industry as well.
Yeah, when we got to Shannon, like, I'll be honest with you, Shannon for my family would have been like, it was expensive to go to Shannon at that stage, even by that standards. So like there was a lot of hoteliers' children there. Now we had a small little hotel. It was very modest at that stage. And some of these people are coming from very big hotels and from chains hotels. Some of them came in from England. We had foreign students as well. But we only had a small amount of people. But the man in charge was a fellow called Jürgen Blum. And he was the director of the college. This was set up by the vision, by the way, of Brendan O'Regan, who set up the Shannon Free Airport. And he brought this hotel school into there. And to a lot of hoteliers in this country owe a great deal of gratitude to Brendan O'Regan. He was a very, very fine man and a great visionary, a great entrepreneur as well. So, but Jürgen Blum was a Swiss man. He had been in the Swiss army, and he was a great example. And I remember at one stage we went on a wine tour of France, which for a young lad from Rosslare playing hurling for Wexford and playing hurling for his club, it wasn't actually the done thing for fellas like me that time to be doing this, but I enjoyed it, I can tell you that. And the wine tour was really, really good. But he brought us to Verdun and to all the places around the First World War. And he was good fun, but he was a good man in control. And the reasons why was because he led by example as well. But he made a speech outside of one of the famous war sites, and he talked to us about life and about war and all of those things. And to this day I'm emotional about it because the tears were coming down his face as he spoke about this. But you know what? It just was absolutely a life-changing experience for me. It taught me another side of life, the war and the death and the futility of it all, and man's inhumanity to man, the unfairness of life and how people were treated. And like, it never left me. And I brought my kids back there to do something similar, but not as good. Obviously, well, not really, couldn't do it as good as he did that time, because it was a once in a lifetime moment. And to my one of my sons was in the business, Liam Anthony, he brought his kids, and through the family, they discovered on my wife's side that she had a granduncle who was killed in the First World War.
Wow.
And they got to his grave.
And so
Which
those
was brilliant,
lessons,
because he was a forgotten man, you know what I mean, by that time.
So, Liam, you've amassed this sort of extraordinary body of knowledge from a very young age in terms of hospitality. You've gone to the place to learn about the hotel industry in Shannon, driven by a visionary and a man who inspired you and future generations for the rest of your life. So you have one hell of a lot of resources at play. But you weren't content. At that point, you left Ireland.
Yes, well, I went to, as part of the Shannon, they had a system where they placed people with Movenpick. And Movenpick was again developed by a great entrepreneur, a man called Uli Prager. And Uli Prager's office was next door to the restaurant where I was working in, right? So you work through each individual department in the restaurant, right? Restaurant, kitchen, bar, every part of it. And that, again, was great training. And the Swiss passed masters at the art. And these people were absolutely a brilliant company in that they were way before their time. I could spend all day telling you about that, but they were way before their time. And he built a good business, but it was a great place for me to work. So I worked there for a little bit over a year, just about a year. And left there with a lot of good learnings from there. And then I joined Trust House Forte. And Trust House Forte were the biggest hotel group in the world at that particular time. And I spent another year with Trust House Forte. So I'd been to Movenpick, the best of the best as far as I was concerned, not about systems or structures, but about the product and how they served it and what they did with it. I was in Trust House Forte, the biggest hotel group in the world. They had their own systems. They were around the world. They were well known. They were sold off since and broken up. So they were very British in their whole back of house stuff. And now I had a chance to work for an American company. So I applied for a job I thought, yeah, that's a good idea. And I applied for a job in Intercontinental in Dublin. And I got the job. And I was there for a few years. And I learned American systems because I wanted to do that now, because I knew I was going to go home eventually. And I wanted to give myself that rounding that I could get. So that's where I went and learned an awful lot in Intercontinental hotels. And then Intercon sold out because there was bombs going off all over the place. And the IRA were in full swing. They were bombing in Britain. And like the Intercons got out of Ireland as quick as they could in the end. And I joined Board Fáilte in the meantime, because they now wanted to see the overall structure of tourism in the country and how it was managed and what the vision for tourism was in the country. So I joined those as a standards advisor, having been promoted in Intercon a couple of times.
So you were poacher turned gamekeeper at this stage. You'd crossed the divide and you were on the other side. Yeah. Did that suit you? And I suppose what did you bring away from that?
What I wanted to see was what's the vision like of the top people? Where are we going with this industry? We're not going very far, by the way, because we haven't even got a Minister for Tourism yet. The Minister for Tourism at the moment under a new regime has got about 47 other portfolios, and I don't know what the hell they're doing that they don't put a Minister for Tourism in there. And I could see that in my own time in Board Fáilte. And we need it. If it's an industry, we need it, and that's it, to go do the job. But anyway, that's not where we are. In terms of my time there, I saw a very good structure of the old Board Fáilte, which the Fianna Fáil government took asunder with Charlie McCreevy and changed it because they wanted more control themselves rather than give it to Board Fáilte. And Board Fáilte were doing a great job in my time. I have to say that. They were doing a great job. And I saw all sides of it. I was seconded to the marketing side to go to London to try and get the Irish to go back to Ireland, not because I was brilliant, but because I was a rural Irish fella. I played hurling and football, and I might have some synergy with him. You wouldn't be doing very well coming out from D4 maybe, and looking for...
You spoke the language.
Yeah, spoke the language. So that was great for me as well, that I got that exposure to the London scene at the time. So, like, I learned from Board Fáilte as well that I wasn't suitable for Board Fáilte long term. I was doing 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. I was doing a bit extra, but that's not the point. 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. I was so used to the hotel business. Before a 9 to 5 job, and I was hurling would have suited me, but now I was in love with the business as well. And it wasn't social, and there wasn't stuff going on all the time like there is in the business. And I missed that going on. So I left Board Fáilte and came back, and I bought the hotel from my mother. My poor dad was at that stage. So that's what I did, and that's how I got going myself.
And so it's funny because, you spoke about wartime analogies, and obviously to a certain extent, the trenches is where you belong. You don't want to talk about it, you want to do it.
Yeah.
And so that in itself, that transition to own the hotel that your parents had built up, that was not an easy task.
I can tell you one thing, it was one hell of a task because no bank would give me any money. I couldn't get the money to buy the place. And I was getting it for half its value. I had two brothers and my mother being as fair as anybody could possibly be. I was going to buy the hotel. That's it. And I get it for half its value. Now, I tried to get it for half its value, but the banks wouldn't give it to me. But eventually, I got it from Lombard and Ulster Finance, strangely enough, through hurling. And I was involved with a soccer team in Board Fáilte, and we played a banking team, which I was going to kick every one of them around the place if I got half a chance, but whatever, it wasn't like that. And this guy, I had played on him in hurling. I went to Clare. When I went to Shannon, I got on the Clare team, and I had played against this guy, and he got me the money at enormous expense anyway. But
to you,
to me. But at the same time, like, the interest rates were so high, but the banks wouldn't give me any money because I had no money. And I used to keep saying, how could I get money? I work for Movenpick. I work for Trust House Forte. I've got this and I got this. I know my business, and that's basically it. I'm quite happy. I can make it work. So, but no, I had no money. I didn't have any cash. That's it. But he gave me the money at an expensive rate. And he gave me the way out of it. He said, this is how you can do it, and this is how you get out of it. So he said, you trade for a year, go back to those banks, you perform in those years, and I'm sure you're going to, and they'll take you on then because you've established it. They're not taking the first risk. So that's what happened. And I went back and got the money off the bank. But I'm eternally grateful to a guy called Pat Murphy, who arranged that for me at that stage. Only for him, I was about to give up to try to get money, because I thought, well, I'm a pauper, so you don't get money when you're a pauper.
And I suppose that's the true nature of entrepreneurialism. And, you proved yourself, you believed in yourself, and you had the vision for it. And the vision.
I also had a place that had seen one hell of a lot of hard work, and I wasn't going to be able to get it, and I wasn't going to be able to bring it further or whatever. That was on my mind too. And
what was the vision for your parents' hotel then?
Yeah, well, I wanted to build it up. It wasn't in great shape all around. Parts of it were wooden structure. It needed to be redone, needed to be rebuilt. But that was my parents' effort, and I felt I didn't want to let it go either. I wanted to make something, and though I let it go in the end, but after we'd done a lot of work with it, we sold it in the end. So they were the tying factors that keep you motivated as well. That's in a family type business, and maybe that's not a great business idea, do I tell you? But that's the way it happened for me.
And so that moment when you, I suppose, sold that hotel and moved into a reality that you created yourself, your own vision from scratch, was that a very different sort of chapter in your story?
It was huge, because I never got the chance. I never had the resources. And, you could argue you still don't have enough resources to that. We never a moneyed family type of thing. That's a fact. And there's no shame in that, I can tell you. So actually, it's not bad for you if you really, when you think about it. But anyway, from my point of view, I was trapped in the site in Rosslare. It was very confined, and I'd done as much as I could there. And I built up a very good business together with my wife, Mary, who was fantastic, a rock at my side. And she didn't know what she was letting herself in for when she married me. I still don't know how I managed to get her, to be honest. But anyway, there we go. So after a long time there, my accountant was a great friend of mine, and my solicitor was a great friend of mine. They knew me inside out, and they were great advisors to me. And you need a mentor. You need someone to say, hold on a minute, come up out of the trench for a minute and sit down here. We need to talk. Where are we going with this? So they were fantastic to me. John O'Connor from Shield Kinnear in Wexford, and a man called Peter Redmond. They were great mentors for me and a great help to me because they could see a different side of the story, right? So anyway, we decided that I needed to move on and to try and get somewhere else. And we eventually bought Hotel Kilkenny, and we identified that as a good place to go, which it proved to be. And then that was in 1985. And then we bought the Ferry Carrick Hotel in Wexford, and that was in 1991. So we had now got the three places: Rosslare. I still had Rosslare, and I had Kilkenny, and we had Ferry Carrick. So we decided to sell Rosslare at the end of the 90s, 1999, I think it was, when we sold it altogether. And then the next thing is you could see the crash was coming, because now the Board Fáilte control of the development of the product was gone. You had this tax break system coming in, which in fairness to it was a good idea at the time, but it was overused by the Fianna Fáil government to the point of ruination, to be honest. And the whole business became oversupplied. And I had always got hotels and premises that I needed to do jobs on. I never got to a greenfield site. And I felt, we're going to go for a greenfield site. This thing is going to crash. 4-star hotels are going to be killed, because whatever they're going to do, if we fill all these hotels we built, we'll have too many tourists. They'll pollute the place. If we don't fill them, they're going to go broke out of these places. And that was I wasn't a genius, because I could see it coming. I felt it was coming. And then we decided we called our own management team together, and we came up with the idea of Monart, and this was going to be a greenfield site. Everybody felt that we should have done it at Ferry Carrick. We're overlooking a beautiful river. And my point was, when is a spa not a spa? And my point was, when it's in a hotel. Because you meet a girl going there, a child or a boy making their first communion, you meet somebody, you meet a funeral, you meet weddings, you meet everybody. All of human nature is there. But we want to do a specific product. Now, we wanted to do it, we wanted to get the timing right as well, because with the way the speculators were going, if we'd have opened 2 years earlier, there'd be 40 in Ireland now. That's a fact. They would have, because they were copycatting everything, so they were going to copycat that. So we got a chance to build from the ground up something that we want to do. Nothing flashy, nothing over the top, nothing but whatever chandeliers hanging out of the ceiling. This was about the subliminal message to the client. This is about you and about what we can do for you within there. We're not here to be flash. We're here to be good, and we're here to be nice. We'll give you the best of food. We'll give you the best of service. We'll give you all of those things. And then we hope you'll enjoy the experience, and we give you good experiences ourselves. But it was a greenfield site. It was in a business I knew something about. I wasn't branching into something I knew nothing about. I had 2 sons coming up behind me. We sat down and discussed, where are we going, guys, with all this? Do we flog all this and see if we can get a few bob for ourselves and bail out before the whole place bails out? Or what do we do? And one of my sons, Michael, I think it was, and Liam Anthony both agreed, Dad, your mother, all before you, you've done this. Because I said, we're entering tough times. And it said, wouldn't we be poor guys if we couldn't take on a challenge? So I said, that's it then, boys. We keep the race is still on, so let's keep going. So that's what we did at the kitchen table.
And I suppose Monart.
And I'm proud of those 2 guys, to be fair. I'm really proud of all my sons.
And I want to talk to you about that, because I suppose you were a very early adapter of the notion of experiential consumerism, this idea that Monart would create something very new, a new way of doing things. We're in extraordinary times, and hospitality has been through such a serious cataclysmic shift. I know your sons are working very hard on strategizing and unpicking the future of hospitality. Where do you think the learnings are, and where do you think the wins are to be made in the future?
Hard to say, but just one thing before that. They all worked in the hotels when they were young. And when they were in secondary school, they said I put them in there in bare feet and things like that. I wouldn't even give them shoes. They just exaggerate like hell about how the hardship I gave them. I didn't actually, but they worked through every department.
Makes for a good story, though, Liam.
Yeah, it does. They tell everybody. But from my point of view, I had got something from it. Did I love washing up? Did I love those? No, I didn't. But you know what? When I look back on it, I knew how to respect the guy who was washing up, right? Because I did it myself. I knew how to clear a sewer, because somebody has to do it, right? So those learnings, we're a craft industry. We're not above anything. We need to be able to do anything we can. So that's just to finish that chapter. Now, what do I see in the future of hospitality? Look, I see a government that's not with it in terms of tourism big time, honestly, and it's coming out again now. They can prove themselves again. Like, we were non-competitive for a long time there, and there was a feeling abroad, and the wonder about rural Ireland, that you could keep going back into industries and businesses like family businesses, shops, high streets, and ask them for more money all the time. We charge more VAT, we charge more rates, we charge more this, because the councils were left denuded of cash and they were told to go collect more rates. So the local councillor says, well, sure, why don't we hit the businesses? Where else can his vision be? It's just locally. So we've beaten people off the high street. We've beaten them off it, right? By taking what profit they were. People were on minimum wage. They were running some of these businesses for a long time, but they were prepared to do it. And I felt that's my take on it. That's my take on it. Okay. So from that point of view, then we made ourselves non-competitive. Listen, a man gets into an airplane in London, he can fly north, south, east, or west. He can do the same from Barcelona. He can do the same from Paris. So we've got to be competitive in this industry. And it's either an industry or it's a Cinderella game. And they either see it as an industry and back it. Because from Malin to Mizenhead to Carnsore Point and all the way back to Belfast Lough, every parish is involved in tourism and hospitality of some nature. And there's a lot of people employed in it. Yes, there are low wage costs, low wages in some of the areas, but not in them all. There's some great wages as well. So it's a mix of everything in the local society, and that's good for society. That's my view. Why wouldn't I say it? I'm in the business. But
the business is phenomenally important to the Irish economy.
It is absolutely phenomenal. But we just talk lip service to it, and that's the point. Because if we think it's so important, how come we haven't a minister for tourism? How come we have a minister for sport and tourism and all those issues at the same time? That's my take on it. Now, the government will go to set out the stall this time and to set out the ministers. I had already made overtures that we should be putting a minister, and I see they didn't do it again. And you're thinking, oh, here, come on, look, this is going over. My boys won't get involved in that. They just look that. Forget about it. Just keep going. That's it.
So talking about forgetting about it and just keep going. What does that look like for you right now with your stable of hotels? What does just keep going look like in an industry that has literally just reopened its doors?
Well, for now, at the moment, it's very difficult, obviously. But like, we're doing a good job. I have to say, I'm very proud of the job we're doing in Kilkenny and Ferrycarrig at the moment, because it's well organised. I was in the gym area this morning there. Very well done, really good, safe. Every protocol being adhered to, everybody in masks, all our staff in masks, and they're doing a great job in what they're doing, and that's what they're supposed to do.
And what's changed, Liam? What kind of, at this point in time, is fundamentally different to how things were working before?
Well, it doesn't feel like the same as hospitality was before. Like, when you go into receptions, there's all plastic advisors like in front of you, and you're coming in one door, it's controlled, whereas before it was a free-for-all. It's different. But I was in the place this morning, but the people are adapters as well. They're very good, I have to say. They're not whinging about the old times. They're actually complimenting us on how well we're running it now, because the people we have coming in are serious about health and everything else. And we have to be, because our staff are our family as well, because we need to keep them safe and we need to keep our customers safe. So, but that doesn't feel like it. But that's me thinking old time. But the people are adapting to it and they're accepting it. You know.
And now, if you think about a simple act of, the beloved function of the hotel breakfast, what does that look like now?
Well, it looks like slower than before. That's the first thing, because I heard a customer say it yesterday. For example, we are operating protocols in our kitchens. We're not letting chefs pass from one station to another. So our kitchens are completely different than they were. The buffet, personally, I was never mad about buffets myself. Not because I'm old school, but we have a great buffet in Ferrycarrig, to be fair, and Kilkenny, we do it differently in Kilkenny. Monart is a buffet, but we do main courses from the kitchen. But we have a whole set of protocols. So we're slower, and the people are so used to grabbing a breakfast and moving. Now they have to expect a leisurely breakfast because it's going to be slower. It's slowed down because of the system. And any hotel that's doing it, if they're going to be slower, but that's acceptable in this COVID period.
And as you said, people are adaptable. So, I think everything has slowed down to a certain extent. And we've actually quite enjoyed that prospect. When you look at, the network that EY Entrepreneur of the Year has put around you now, and you see the value of that network, where are the wins for you in that extraordinary group of people?
Well, the wins for me with the extraordinary group of people, and I have to say they are extraordinary. I am humbled when I go in and see what some of these guys can do. It just blows your mind with what they've done. And they've shown all of the traits of humble guys who are doing a great job. And I don't see any guy with massive egos. Maybe another one here and there. Maybe I'm the one with the ego. I don't know. But the point is that they're a completely different group than somebody would think of on the outside when you present who they are. But they again, to mix with that group and the learning opportunities I've had and the support I've got from EY during the crash as well was huge for me, because I was in there. I was friendly with Frank, who was in charge of it at that stage, and friendly with them all. But he was the running all of that system at the time, and we used them for our time when our business was sold by Ulster Bank into a vulture fund. So we had no choice in saying the matter. We were performing loan at the time when we were sold over to the vulture fund, and the only thing that I resent is we had to give the vulture fund 100 cents in the euro for to buy back our business, and they could flip our business if they took it off us. They got it for something like 40 cents in the euro, and they went off to America and they could flip it in 7 years, and they could go away with paying no tax. And here's my mother, my grandmother, my kids, the whole lot, all of us playing the game along here, generations of people working on the track, and this suddenly happens. Now, they say they had to do that. I don't know. I'm not an economist. I don't know if they had to do it. But certainly, you know what, it was a blunt instrument, and that's for sure. And we did pay, and we paid it, and we got going again, and that's it. And we bought it back from a vulture fund, paid them their money, and moved on. That's what we did. And I'm glad to say we're still standing.
It's really interesting because it's something we don't often touch on, is the support of the Entrepreneur of the Year network in bad times. It's almost a given that network has huge value in good times. It's great to hear that support is there. I have to ask you before we finish up, just for your quick thoughts, if there is such a thing, on return to play within the GAA.
Yeah, well, for return to play within the GAA, from my perspective, the big worry is, are we going to get this pandemic to come back again? The most important thing is that the players stay safe, and that everybody associated with the game stays safe. It'll be great if we can continue right till the rest of the year. And it's great to see fellas back in the field. Hopefully I'm going to get to a match this evening to see our own club play. So, that's really the belief we're alive again. You know, particularly in rural Ireland, you're alive again when you can see teams taking the field to play. So hopefully it's going to all work out. I'd like to think we need to make changes in the GAA arising from this, because it shows up a few of the issues that we have, and hopefully we can get the balance right between club players and inter-county players, and I believe we can. It's not that big a deal. It can be done, and it can be done quickly, to be honest.
Liam Griffin, thank you so much for your time today. Fascinating story, and I wish you the very best of luck into the future.
Thank you, Sonya. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening and watching Architects of Business, made in partnership with EY Entrepreneur of the Year. Thanks to all the team here at Joe, and of course to our entrepreneur today, Liam Griffin. If you haven't already done so, click subscribe to get brand new shows directly into your feed.